Welcome back to our next edition of the CBB Review Studio podcast. I am Dan Siegel, joined as always by my co-host Ben Anderson. Ariel Puterman is back on the pod for our last of the 4 March Madness first round regional previews. And finally, we have the Midwest. Guys, how's it going? We'll start with you, Ben.
Going great. I mean, 4 for 4. These are all great brackets. I'm super excited for each and every region that we have here. I think there's going to be some cool storylines the whole way around.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of upset potential in terms of first round games, more so in this region than others. Ariel, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm super excited. I'm actually going to be at the Sweet 16 Elite 8 covering for CBB Review at the T-Mobile Center in Kansas City. So I'm super excited about that. Super excited to see a bunch of these teams play, and hopefully we see some upsets. Yeah, and like you mentioned, there's a lot of great games in this region.
All right, let's get started with number 1 Houston against number 16 Northern Kentucky. I'm not going to really talk about this matchup, but just a couple of things about Houston. They're a team we've kind of figured it out at this point in March. And maybe this team's different, but in general, a Houston program, they're going to win games against every inferior team that they could just get a million offensive rebounds. Because even if they miss shots, they'll get second chances. Once there's a team that can match their physicality, then problems arise, but it obviously will not start with Northern Kentucky. Probably won't start with, well, we'll get there. But yeah, what do you guys think?
Yeah, Houston doesn't lose games like this.
Yeah. I have 2 things to say. 1, this should be Kansas playing in this game, but whatever, can't control that. 2, Sasser's injury is going to be a big part of this. I don't think it's going to matter in this game, but how healthy he is or if he can even play is going to be a big thing for Houston down the stretch.
All right, well, who will they be playing in the second round? That will be number 8 Iowa or number 9 Auburn. What do you think?
I'll be real here. I hate both of these teams. I don't think either of them are good. If I had to pick one, I guess I'll pick Auburn just because they're playing in Birmingham. Like, they get basically a home game, which is cool for the Tigers. Like, I suppose I think that their defense will frustrate Iowa. I don't think they have seen the level of athleticism that Auburn has, especially on the wings. I'll be interested to see how Chris Murray and Peyton Sanford in particular handle that. I guess I'll take Auburn, but I'm not happy about it.
Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing about how I wish neither of these teams are playing, just because neither's fun to watch and both are extremely frustrating. Just whenever you turn on one of the games, you're like, I just don't want to watch this anymore, especially Auburn. So just for the sake of content, I'll pick Iowa. I know Fran's not the best March Madness coach. I don't think they've made the Sweet 16 this century. I think last time was 1999. But I just don't like Auburn's team that much. I think their guards are super inconsistent. And Janai Broom just hasn't really been the guy we thought he'd be this year. He's been good, not great. I think a lot of people were really expecting him to take that next step. And Chris Murray, he's a really solid player. And then they got a bunch of solid players all around with the McCaffreys and Sanford, like you mentioned. So I'll take Iowa, but if there's like 4 games on during this game, put this one on mute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of wrote similar things. I will say this will not be a game that is won or lost by 3-pointers. Neither team shoots them particularly well. Not great in terms of matchup value. I'm going to pick Auburn as well, but just because Iowa, same to Maryland that I talked about, Maryland in the South, they don't blow me away, and just all those losses in the Big Ten. I don't know. But let's move on to more exciting things because I think I like this matchup a lot better. Number 5, Miami. Number 12, Drake. Here's the way I view Miami, and I probably follow the ACC more than any other conference, so I watched a lot of Miami, and I think they are prone to upset, but they also could fluster an offensive juggernaut if they get there, like they did last year and made it to the Elite 8. Drake is almost like a mid-major Miami in that they have a lot of guards, but they're also super physical. I honestly like Drake because with Norshad Omier questionable, and he probably plays, but will be compromised, I'm pretty inclined to take Drake. I think Tucker DeVries, 19 points per game for Drake. He's a baller. So I'm taking the Bulldogs here.
Go ahead, Ariel.
Yeah, I think you kind of nailed it. It really depends on how Omir is, his health and that status. Obviously, Miami is not the biggest team. Nigel Pack, one of the under 6 foot club members like myself. But yeah, I'm kind of worried about that. If he plays, I think that they'll have the upper hand. If he doesn't, I think Drake pulls off the upset. So I'm not going to make that pick until we get the official announcement. I guess till the bracket's locked because that's how it works. But for now, I'll go with Miami.
Yeah, I wish I could abstain from this pick considering Omir's. It's sort of like get your bet voided, right? If someone doesn't play. But unfortunately, March Madness doesn't work like that. I think I'm going to take Miami. Cool stat here. According to Bart Torvik, Miami is actually, in a way, in neutral site games, 10.9 points per 100 possessions better on defense than they are at home, which is third in the country in that differential, which is kind of crazy to me because defense is their weak point for the Hurricanes. So I think I'm going to go with Miami. I just think they have a little bit more talent. I think Jordan Miller can lock up DeVries, if I'm being honest. That's a matchup that's interesting. So I'll roll with the Hurricanes.
And then we got number 4, Indiana, number 13, Kent State. Does Kent State have what it takes to pull it off over another Big Ten school in March?
So here's my issue with Kent State. They have great guards, right? Of course, because that's what they're known for. They have a really strong defense. Who's going to guard Trace Jackson Davis? Like, are they just going to play like? Are they just going to foul him the entire time? What's going to happen here? I want to like Kent State, but when you're looking at a situation where the best player on the best team is so much better than any other person on the court, that's really hard for me to pick against in a first round game. So I just think that TJD will push him over the line.
Yeah, I'll fade you on this one, and I'll take it a step farther and say that Kent State's going to make the Sweet 16 over the winner of Miami Drake. Just based on how they've played this year, I mean, we haven't had much of a sample size against tournament teams, but they almost beat Houston on the road.
Yep.
And I think that's super important. And I think they played Gonzaga, and they all only lost by single digits. Correct me if I'm wrong there. I know it's one of the high major teams. But yeah, I mean, they've looked great. Sincere Carey's a terrific player. And that conference has really produced a lot of great March Madness teams. I mean, we saw what Ohio did. Akron almost beat UCLA last year, who was a couple shots away, a couple Caleb Love misses away from making the Final Four, maybe even further. So this conference obviously produces really great teams. The size advantage is going to be an issue, but I think that their guard play and their defense will be enough to win them this game.
Agreed. I think to take it a step further, I'm not picking Kent State to go farther. I meant to take it a step further.
Kent State winning the whole tournament.
Take it a step further in your analysis. Kent State is a very underrated offensive team. We know what they are in defense. That's their identity, but didn't they just come off 93 points against Toledo? Not too bad. Toledo is a bad defensive team, right? But still, not too bad. And everyone on their schedule, they've pretty much played tough, including Houston and Gonzaga. Yeah. I'm going Kent State. No, I'm not sure I'll pick them to the Sweet 16. I think the Miami Drake winner goes there, but either way, we move on to the bottom half of the region, and we have a play-in first off between Pitt and Mississippi State. Winner will get the 11th seed and play the 6th-seeded Iowa State. So the way I feel about this is, first off, I don't think Iowa State has a dynamic enough offense to make a run, but I feel differently about the way they match up against these respective teams. Pitt, Mississippi State, pretty much a toss-up playing game. Mississippi State, I think Iowa State could beat. Mississippi State runs their offense through their big, Tolu Smith. I think Iowa State could stop it. Pitt, if Pitt beats Mississippi State, they're coming off of a win. Their confidence is back. I can see Pitt rising to the occasion and balling out and beating Iowa State. They've already beaten some good teams this year. Blake Hinson is a guy I think Iowa State really struggles with, just with his length and also his ability to do so many things with the ball in his hands. So that's my take. Depending on the playing game, I think it's different whether Iowa State escapes, and that's what will be my pick in my bracket. I'll have to wait.
Go ahead, Ariel.
Yeah, here's the thing I'm struggling with is that we know that every year one of the play-in teams makes it to the round of 32. And this is obviously one of the games. The other game is number 60 TCU, who I think is a really good team and one that's going to win. So one of those teams is going to have to lose according to history. If Iowa State didn't make the Sweet 16 last year, I'd be in a doubt, be like, Pittsburgh or Mississippi State's going to win this game. But Otzelberger obviously knows how to grind out these games and win these close ones. I guess I'll go with the winner of Pitt, Mississippi State. Revenge game for Blake Hinson. He was on Iowa State before he transferred. He played like 2 minutes a game. So this is a cool story if he ends up playing Iowa State and they beat Mississippi State. But yeah, I think both these teams rely heavy on their forward play with Tolu Smith, obviously. Iowa State's more they're better against those guards. Robert Jones is taking over as the starter, and he's not that great. And Oshuni, he's kind of taken a step down this year after being great at St. Bonaventure. So I'll take the 11 seed. I don't love the pick, but history says that they're going to win. So I don't want to doubt history.
So in my mind, I actually have Arizona State beating TCU. I think that's a possibility in the other bracket. So I think I'm going to take Iowa State. I think Pitt as actually not the better team, but the team I like more. I just am concerned about their ability to play 2 good games in a row. That doesn't really happen for them all that much. So I think they're going to beat Mississippi State pretty handily. Everyone's going to be super high on Pitt. And then they're going to lose to Iowa State in sort of like a meat grinder fashion. I just think that they know how to slow things down. Really, I trust in TJ Altenboger at this point. That's my take.
All right, and then we got 3 Xavier against 14 Kennesaw State. Now, Kennesaw State won a lot of games in the Atlantic Sun, but I'm just not sure what they do particularly well to compete like a team like Xavier. They have a high free throw rate and a super low free throw percentage. They have one of the highest free throw rates in the country and one of the worst free throw percentages in the country. So that's like a very bad formula. Just a fun fact there. Anything to add here? Either of you guys? Or you just got like Xavier a lot?
I don't love Xavier, but I'll take him.
Okay.
Yeah, I think people want to take Kennesaw State because of the story with Amir Abdur-Rahim. And just people like to take upsets. And obviously Freemantle being out is going to hurt them a lot. But I just think they're just too talented with Solly Boom, how he's been this year, and Jack Nunji at the center.
All right. Number 7, Texas A&M. Number 10, Penn State. 2 teams that did really well in their conference tournaments. And in my opinion, we're done dirty with seeding. But they're playing each other.
I half agree with you. I think Penn State's seeding is actually pretty okay. But Texas A&M should be at least a 6.
2 years in a row, man.
Yeah, I don't get it. I'm going to take the Aggies for the vibes and for the potential. I mean, like, I want to see Texas and Texas A&M play in the tournament. Like, that's got to be a thing, right? There's a reason they put this in the same, them two in the same pod. I think that Texas A&M can be really big inside. Like, they have some big bodies with Henry Coleman and Julius Marble that'll sort of take advantage of Penn State's lack of size, in my opinion. Jalen Pickett's probably going to get his, and if they shoot threes, they shoot threes. But Penn State, that is. But I think Texas A&M is just a little bit more well-rounded.
Yeah, I agree. I wish they could take Penn State and swap them with Auburn just so we can have 2 more enjoyable games. But unfortunately, they can't. Yeah, their size is just incredible. And Wade Taylor, I feel like every time I watch a Texas A&M game, he's scoring 20+. And he's just been great all year. Penn State's got great shooting, but if they're not hitting, then there's no solution. It's also like the little coaching, like little back of the head. Micah Shrewsbury's pretty much signed off his contract to go to Georgetown. So in the back of the head, it's how much does this really mean to him? He already knows he's getting a job out of this and a lot more money. I know you guys probably talked about the Iona UConn game, so I feel like Rick Pitino's kind of going through that same thing where this game doesn't really matter to him. He knows he has a job waiting for him, and I think that'll be a little bit of distraction for Shrewsbury.
Yeah. I like Texas A&M too. I don't dislike Penn State maybe as much as you guys do, but Texas A&M is not who you want to play right now. So that's really the bottom line. Texas and Colgate, the 2 against the 15. Shouts to Colgate, by the way, the OG shot quality team. That's where our friend Simon went. And developed his model, but I'll be rooting for them. Texas has too many athletes, unfortunately. Yeah. So
yeah, go ahead.
Ben.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to pick a 2-15 game, I think it would actually be this one, or a 15 to upset a 2. I think it would be Colgate. I think their offense ultimately wins games. Like defense wins championships, but offense wins games, if that makes sense, especially when you're looking at upsets. And I think Colgate has an explosive one, but I agree with you. I just think like their guards, Texas's guards, that is going to eat them up, I think.
Yeah, I'm actually glad they're 15 seed, not like a 13 or 14, because I feel like I would fall for the Colgate trap every year, where I look at their numbers and I'm like, this team has to be good in March, and then they always lose in the first round. So I'm glad they're playing Texas, who's probably one of the hottest teams in the country right now, so we don't have to worry about making that. I mean, they could obviously win. It's March, anything could happen, but I think Texas is just better.
All right, Elite Eight pick. I'm going to start because, Ben, you mentioned you're not a big fan of Xavier. I actually have Xavier going out of this region. I have them over Houston, even without Freemantle. First off, we've got a potential between Texas and Xavier in the Sweet 16. That would be a heck of a matchup. But Texas, Timmy Allen's pretty banged up too. Do we know the status on him?
No, I think he's kind of game time decision for the tournament. They might have just kept him out of the Big 12 tournament just to make sure he doesn't re-aggravate his injury, kind of like Kevin McCullough for Kansas.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. But with him at least banged up, maybe they're not at 100% either. Not that a lot of teams are at 100% at this point, but I like Xavier a lot. I think they're going to beat Houston. Houston runs through the top region, but the thing about, like I said about Houston, they're going to lose to a team that could match the physicality, but then really open up things on offense. And I think the first team that they will meet that fits both of those molds is, even without Freemantle, the Xavier Musketeers.
Go ahead, Ariel.
Yeah, like I mentioned, I'll have Kent State in my Sweet 16, but not in my Elite Eight. I'm gonna have Texas beating Houston. I just think Texas right now, I just don't know. When all their guards are clicking, Tyrese Hunter, Marcus Carter, Jabari Rice, and you got guys like Dylan DeSue, who was not much of an impact in the regular season. Then he comes into the Big 12 tournament and wins Big 12 tournament MVP. That's how good he was. If their forwards can play like that, especially with Timmy Allen, if he's healthy and he can still play at the level he does, I just don't know who's going to beat them. And with Houston, I don't want to disrespect Gonzaga because they actually play a lot harder of a schedule than people make it out to be, but Houston's best win is Virginia. And no disrespect for Virginia, but they're a 4 seed, so they haven't really had that high-end experience. Their one game they did was Alabama, and they lost at home. So I think they're due for a loss. I wouldn't be surprised if they lose. That's why I wish they weren't playing Iowa and Auburn. They were playing like Memphis or something like that, or another 8 seed that they can actually lose to, just because I don't think they're as good as people make them out to be. So I think Texas, best team in this region, maybe the best team in the country. So I'm going to go with Texas.
Well, and that makes 3 different Final Four picks because I do have Houston going to the Final Four. I think so. Here's my reasoning: they have a particularly easy top half of the bracket. I think I have Miami in the Sweet 16 out of that foursome right there. So I'll take Houston to beat them pretty comfortably. And then for me, Texas is the biggest competitor to Houston. But I think they have 2 really tough games to go before they beat the Cougars. And I think they're just more likely to lose one of those 2 games before they even get to Houston. And then by that point, they're already pretty banged up. And Houston sort of takes advantage with real NBA talent, which they haven't really had in the past. I think Jarris Walker's a really, really good player. And I don't see anyone on Texas in particular guarding them. I'm going to take Houston over Texas. But I wouldn't be surprised if Texas lost in the round of 32 or the Sweet 16.
If Sasser's limited or he doesn't play, does your pick change, or do you still stick with Houston?
No, I still stick with Houston.
Okay.
You got to stick to your guns in March Madness.
Fair
There's
enough.
no do-overs, especially when you have to fill out your brackets 2 weeks before potential matchups happen.
All right. Well, that's probably the most disagreement we've had of all the 4 regions, but that will do it for today's episode of the CBB Review Studio. Check out our 3 previous regional previews if you have not already. We will be back with more content after the first 2 rounds, heading into the Sweet 16 in that weekend. But once again, everyone, Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and take care.